Hello, everybody. This is Donald Trump, and 250 million people are not garbage. How do you like my garbage truck? This truck is in honor of Kamala and Joe Biden.
USA!
You are the man.
Ready to take out the garbage. Good to see you guys. Love you, brother. We took out some trash today. Good luck. Good to see you. Good to see you. Got some real trash. Good to see you, man. How are you?
Very good, very good.
Good to see you. How are you? Good to see you.
You got trash!
Thank you. Yeah, we had some fun with this today.
Horrible. Very horrible.
Yeah.
Personally, what did that mean to you?
I felt disrespected.
If there's one thing that we can do, we're about 6 days away from being in a position to do it. Okay? If there's one thing we can do to make life better for you and people who drive garbage trucks across this country, what is that going to be for you?
Keep the prices down.
Okay. You think we can do that? Yeah, do that. We promise you, man. You put us in there, we're going to get that job done. This man's been a great soldier. Give him a round of applause. North Carolina for the hurricane and everything else. Leo's a good man, but this isn't one of these.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I gotta tell you guys, Trump is the GOAT, right? He really is the GOAT because he has already taken advantage of the fact that Joe Biden came out and called Trump supporters garbage, right? He said we're garbage, okay? This is what he said. Now, what's hilarious about this is that Joe Biden would not have said that had the mainstream liberal media not been clutching their pearls for the last 72 hours over a joke made by a comedian at Trump's Madison Square Garden rally. Okay, the Trump derangement from the media trying to blow up a joke that a comedian made about the island of Puerto Rico and their trash problem, that has essentially backfired, right? It's now being turned around on them because Biden called Trump supporters trash as a result of the fake outrage that has been expressed over a joke. And of course, the Democrat Party propagandists on MSNBC are not having a good time dealing with the reality that their fake outrage has been turned back around on them.
You know, Chris, it just annoys the hell out of me. Right? I understand the politics. David is absolutely right. I get it. But these are folks who think that they can say anything. They can behave in the most horrifying ways. They can degrade and demean communities. They can scapegoat Haitians in Springfield. They can call entire communities, right, murderers and the like. And then when someone calls them, on what they're saying, they clutch their damn pearl. And it's part of this ongoing grievance that somehow the rest of the country looks down on them. And so it feeds into that logic. I understand the politics. I understand what Vice President Harris has to say. But these folk think they can say and do anything and be as insulting and as mean-spirited as they want to be. And when they're called out about it, they clutch their pearls. It's a kind of hypocrisy that's mind-numbing, and it rhetorically handcuffs us. We don't need to call people deplorables or despicable or garbage, but we need to call them out on their nonsense and their hatred.
Okay, and now Trump is pulling up to his rallies in garbage man gear, which I think is absolutely genius because it is a perfect representation of the type of voter, right? The hardworking blue collar man that was offended by Joe Biden's joke, right? That should be offended because, again, he called half of this country garbage. Take a look.
We are now 6 days out from Election Day. Nearly 60 million votes have already been cast in early in-person voting and through the mail. And the latest polls suggest the race could not be tighter. Both campaigns are locking their focus on the battleground states. Vice President Kamala Harris rallied in North Carolina and Pennsylvania today and is in Wisconsin tonight. Former President Donald Trump was in North Carolina earlier and tonight is also in Wisconsin. He landed in Green Bay just a short short time ago and then pulled this campaign stunt, speaking to reporters from a garbage truck. Proof that he and his supporters are giving no grace to a gaffe by President Biden, where he, in his explanation, inadvertently called Trump supporters garbage. This, of course, was in response to that racist joke about floating garbage told at a Trump rally just last weekend. Vice President Harris is distancing herself from the negativity and trying to drive home her unifying message that if elected, she will represent all Americans.
But stand by for a moment. Trump is answering some questions from reporters.
Joe Biden to make that statement, it's really a disgrace.
You said the other day that the military could be used, that the military or the National Guard can be used on election day if necessary. Can you explain what you meant by that in detail?
I don't think they'll have to be used. I think we're going to have a big victory. And I think 250 million people in this country are going to be very happy because we're going to bring the country back. We're a nation in decline, very, very serious decline. And we're going to bring our country back.
Did you know that Elon Musk was in close contact with President Bush? Did you know about this? Did you know about Elon Musk calls and close communication?
No, I don't know. Elon is a great guy. He's one of our geniuses, and we have to protect our geniuses. We have to take care of our geniuses. There aren't too many of them. Yes, please. And I have to begin by saying 250 million Americans are not garbage. This week, Kamala has been comparing her political opponents to the most evil mass murderers in history. And now, speaking on a call for her campaign last night, crooked Joe Biden finally said what he and Kamala really think of our supporters. He called them garbage. No way. No way. And they actually mean it, even though without question, my supporters are far higher quality than Crooked Joe or Lion Kamala. Higher quality. My response to Joe and Kamala is very simple. You can't lead America if you don't love Americans. That's true. You can't be president if you hate the American people, which I believe they do.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Just another example of the genius from the Trump campaign. And I got to tell you, the imagery from Trump's 2024 campaign is iconic, right? I mean, it should be documented in history books. When you talk about the imagery of Trump in his mugshot, the imagery of Trump getting up saying fight, fight, fight after almost getting assassinated. And then you have the imagery of Trump at McDonald's, and now you have the garbage truck thing. Like, I'm just saying, I mean, this campaign feels special, okay? It feels really, really, really special, okay? And this is one of those moments where, again, you get goosebumps and you really feel like you're a part of history, right? History in the making. That is what's happening here, guys. So I guess Trump has officially worked more middle-class jobs than middle-class Kamala Harris, right? I mean, Trump worked at McDonald's, and he has now worked as a garbage man, right? So again, I think he's living up to the label of blue-collar billionaire. And best believe that the Trump campaign is taking advantage of this admission from Joe Biden, right? He said this out loud. We already knew that's what he meant. And you even have anti-Trump pollsters, like, for example, Frank Luntz coming out and sounding the alarm on how this could help the Trump campaign in the closing few days before the election. Take a look.
These polls that we're looking at here and we're talking about, Frank, notably, they were done before President Biden made his comments, seemingly describing Trump supporters as, quote, garbage. The Harris campaign is trying to downplay the effect of those comments. Of course they are. But I wonder if you think that those comments are going to move voters.
It's going to be huge because this is not some comedian saying something stupid and offensive at a rally where he should have been basically disinvited. This is the president of the United States endorsing his vice president saying something. And I know that there's different interpretations about what he said. It's still inappropriate. He still shouldn't be doing it. And I've watched Trump already seize this. The basket of deplorables was significant, was meaningful in 2016. In 2024, I can promise you, that this is going to drive Trump turnout. He's doing it already. I'm sure there's going to be ads on as soon as tonight about this. This may be a turning point for those final 3%, and that's all it is, who still need to be persuaded. And I'll offer you guys something. We're going to be talking to them over the next couple of days. If you want to do something on Monday, the day before, focusing on these last persuadables, I will tell you that Trump offends them, and they don't like him as a person. But Harris scares them because they don't know where she stands, and they feel that she hasn't been clear on some of the key issues, most notably immigration. Trump's got his weaknesses, Harris has her weaknesses, and they seem to be canceling each other out, which is why Harry's correct. This election is too close to call.
Yeah, I mean, there were 70+ million voters for Trump in 2020. So I personally have a hard time believing that Kamala Harris is going to reach that many voters. So if it can galvanize the Trump supporters that, I don't know, maybe are too lazy to go vote, right? Which I don't imagine there are any Trump supporters out there that aren't motivated to vote for him, because ultimately, look at the disaster that has happened over the past 4 years without Trump. Why would you not be motivated to vote for him? But again, if this serves as motivation, then that's great, right? If you can get people off the couch and say, hey, if you support Trump, you got to go vote. He called you garbage, then hey, that's a good thing, okay? That's a great thing if it drives turnout. So with that being said, CNN is sounding the alarm on Kamala Harris and the fact that history is not on her side when it comes to her chances of winning, okay? Because Trump is stronger than he's ever been before going into this election. I mean, he's basically leading. If the election was held today, the betting markets have Trump as the favorite to win. He's up in the national popular vote. He's also up in basically all of the swing states. And again, history is not on Kamala Harris's side, considering how the American people are very dissatisfied with her and Joe Biden. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Just 28% of Americans, voters, think the country is going in the right direction, is on the right track. And I want you to put that into a historical perspective for you. Okay, what's the average percentage of the public that thinks that the country is on the right track when the incumbent party loses? It's 25%. That 25% looks an awful bit like that 28% up there. It doesn't look anything like this 42% doesn't look anything like this 28%. So the bottom line is, very few Americans think the country is on the right track at this particular point. It tracks much more with when the incumbent party loses than with it wins. In fact, I went back through history. There isn't a single time in which 28% of the American public thinks the country is going on the right track in which the incumbent party actually won. They always lose when just 28% of the country believes that the country is on the right track.
It is wow. That's a very, very, very bad statistic for Kamala Harris. Now, me personally, if only 28% of the country thinks that is on the right track, why the hell would you vote for Kamala Harris, right? I think what's more surprising is how this election is allegedly close. This is why I say I wouldn't be surprised that come election day, the Republicans and Trump, they win in a landslide, because there's just too many people who are dissatisfied with the current state of the country. But, you know, you have some voters out there that are irrational. They think that the country is going in the wrong direction. Kamala Harris will come out here and say, oh, yeah, well, I'm just like Joe Biden. And I would not have done anything different than her. And then they'll turn around and vote for Kamala Harris, despite the fact that they know that Kamala's not going to be any different. And they're dissatisfied with the current direction of the country because, well, Trump mean, right? Trump bad. Okay. And, you know, Trump derangement, I think, is primarily responsible for a lot of the illogical decisions that are made by people who are voting Democrat and for Kamala Harris.
Or you are swimming upstream if you're trying to win in this environment. Also, President Biden, on a micro level, a lot of the coverage today is over something President Biden said. On the macro level, what kind of a weight is he on the Harris campaign?
Yeah, so, you know, Joe Biden isn't on the ballot, but he's certainly in the minds of Americans, right? So I went back and I looked, okay, was the successor of the same party when the president's net approval rating was negative at this point, which Joe Biden's most definitely is. He's 15 points underwater. Now, we don't know if Kamala Harris is going to succeed Joe Biden, but we know back in 2008, George W. Bush, his approval rating was down in the 20s. Did a Republican succeed George W. Bush? No. How about in 1968? Lyndon Baines Johnson, his net approval rating was negative. Did a Democrat succeed Lyndon Baines Johnson? No. How about in 52? Harry S. Truman, his approval rating was in the 20s, if not the upper teens. Did a Democrat succeed Harry S. Truman in 52? My memory, no. No, as Kate Baldwin says.
Dianu.
No. Dianu.
Separate.
Well played.
Close. Wrong time of the year.
Well played.
Dwight Eisenhower, a Republican, succeeded Harry S. Truman. So the bottom line is, for Kamala Harris to win, she'd have to break history, be a Democrat to succeed Joe Biden when Biden's approval rating is way underwater at this point.
Again, it could happen. It just doesn't in recent history for sure. Okay.
Which again would bring up a whole lot of questions if Kamala Harris, all of a sudden, this election starts to make history, right? I'm just saying, I will have a whole lot of questions. It just wouldn't make sense at all, in my opinion.
Registration numbers, Harry.
Yeah, Republicans have been registering voters in big, huge numbers. They have been gaining in party registration versus the Democrats in the swing states with party registration. We're talking Arizona. I think it's a 5-point. They've expanded their lead from 5 points from where it was back in 2020. How about Nevada? Big Republican registrations there. They like the early vote. How about North Carolina? Big Republican registration games. How about Pennsylvania? We spoke about it before a few months ago. Big Republican Party registration gains versus from where they were 4 years ago. So Republicans are putting more Republicans in the electorate. The Democratic number versus the Republican number has shrunk. And so the bottom line is, if Republicans win, come next week, Donald Trump comes next week, the signs all along will have been obvious. We would look at the right direction being very low, Joe Biden's approval rating being very low, and Republicans really registering numbers. You can't say you weren't warned.
Again.
Wow. Now, hopefully this is responsible for the boost that the GOP has experienced when it comes to early voting in these swing states. States like Nevada, North Carolina, the GOP, Republicans are voting in record numbers. Now, some people on the left are coping with this reality by saying that, well, these are people who were going to vote on election day anyways, but they decided to vote early. These aren't new GOP voters, right? These are people who are just deciding to vote early because Trump told them to. And essentially, they're using up their votes before election day, right? This is the cope from the left. But again, with the new voter registration numbers, I'm hoping that that is what is responsible for the boost in early voting. And that on election day, Republicans are going to get the same turnout that they typically get on election day, right? So with the early voting numbers that we're currently seeing from the GOP, if election day, the turnout is the same that it usually is, then Republicans are going to win easily, right? Trump is going to win easily, assuming that those Republican votes are for Trump, right? I mean, all of them won't be, but just like, all the Democrat votes also won't be for Kamala Harris either, right? So again, it's really neither here nor there. I'm just saying that right now it's looking really, really, really good, at least the early signs for Trump going into the election.
This is the data which supports the idea of a Trump victory. Tomorrow, viewers, you will get the other side. Stay tuned. Kate.
It's not even the content, but sometimes Harry's delivery is just it's very scary. You're just a very scary man.
Very scary. So she's spooked, right? She's literally spooked. Again, the propagandists can't even hide their bias, man. They can't hide their bias. She claims that it's not the content, but it's 100% the content, right? It's 100%. That's what she's spooked by, because ultimately at the end of the day, this dude essentially presented a case that if Kamala Harris wins, it will be unprecedented because it would go against history, right? On the trends of history, what we see when the incumbent party is doing so bad and the American people want change, they don't win, okay? They typically lose. So if Kamala Harris wins, then that will be an anomaly that, again, I will have a whole lot of questions about in regards to why that happened this time around. But hey, we're not going to go there, okay? We're not going to go there. I'm just saying that hopefully there are no more speed bumps when it comes to Trump's positive momentum that he has gained over the past few weeks going into the election. Hopefully it's smooth sailing from here, and we can cruise to an election victory. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.